Hello children, how are you? Welcome to Santhish Study Circle. Today we are starting a new chapter in class 8, History. Chapter 1, Where, When and How. This chapter helps us understand how we study history, how we divided time into periods and how we choose important dates. Let us begin in a simple way. Before we begin the chapter, let us first understand some basic things about history. What is history? Children, what is history? History is the story of the past. It tells us what happened long ago, the lives of people, the rise and fall of kingdoms, important events, discoveries, changes in society, and much more. History helps us know how people lived, what they taught, and how our present world came to be. Simply put, history is the record of all the events, ideas, and changes that took place before our time. Now, why do we study history? We study history for many important reasons. First thing, history tells us about our roots. It helps us understand where we came from and how our society, culture and country developed over time. Second, history teaches us important lessons from the past. We can learn from the mistakes of the past so that we do not repeat them in the future. It also teaches us what good decisions people made and how those decisions helped society grow. Third thing, history helps us become better citizens. When we know about the struggle and achievements of people who lived before us, we learn to value freedom, equality, and unity. Fourth point, history makes us curious, broadens our thinking. It shows us how the world has changed and how it continues to change. In short, studying history helps us understand the present and prepare for a better future. Now, who writes history? History is written by historians. Historians are people who carefully studied old records, letters, books, inscriptions, coins, buildings, and many other sources from the past. They collected all this information, examined it, and then write the story of the past in a clear and organized way. But remember, different historians may look at the same events in different ways. That is why we sometimes find different opinions about the same event, same period in history. We should always try to read from different sources to get a balanced understanding. Historians do not just list dates and kings. They try to explain why things happened, how people lived, and what changes took place in society, economy, and culture. Do you think only kings and queens are important in history? Or should historians also write about the lives of ordinary people like farmers, artisans, and women? Think if you can answer. Can you think of one thing that happened in the past which still affects our life today? For example, the invention of the wheel or the discovery of fire. If we do not study history, what might happen? Would we keep making the same mistakes again and again? Children, now that we have understood what history means, why we study it, and who writes, let us move into our chapter, Where, When and How. In this chapter, we will learn how to periodize history and how to use important dates. Are you ready? Let us begin. An overview of the period. In Europe, the 16th century saw the beginning of the modern period. But in India, we still consider this time as the Middle Ages of Indian history, known as the history of medieval India. This major difference occurs because different nations in the world did not develop and progress at the same speed. When civilizations were flourishing in one part of the world, other part of the world were still living in the late Paleolithic, early Neolithic age. History is broadly divided into three main periods: the ancient period, the medieval period, and the modern period. It was James Mill, a British economist and political philosopher, who wrote A History of British India in 1817. In this book, he divided Indian history into three periods. He described the ancient period as the Hindu period, the medieval period as the Muslim period, and the period of the British rule in India as the modern period. However, it is better not to describe these periods on the basis of religion as James Mill had done. In a country like India, which has multi-ethnic society, history should be based on important changes in politics, economy, society and culture. This broad approach is preferred instead of the narrow one based only on the religion of the rulers. It helps us understand the main currents of history in better way. The division of history into ancient, medieval and modern periods does not cover the same time in all parts of the world. At the beginning of the modern period, which began around the middle of the 18th century and continues to our present times, Indian society was troubled by many social evils. Many thinkers and educated people made sincere efforts to remove these social evils from Indian society. At the same time, the economy of the country was also in a bad state. Indian industry, trade and agriculture had not developed well. Some economists and administrators tried to bring positive changes and the economy showed some signs of improvement. Educational institutions were opened where students studied both Oriental and Western languages. Oriental means Indian languages. Western education was introduced and soon Western literature became a popular subject. Western ideas and thoughts influenced Indian minds. The attitude of the people and their thinking in Indian society began to change. India and its people were now standing at the threshold of the modern age. The study of Western culture, philosophy and history brought Indians into contact with the ideas of equality, liberty and fraternity. Indians now realize how they had been ruled and controlled by the British. When Indians learned about equality and liberty, how do you think they felt about British rule? What changes do you think Western education brought in the minds of Indian people? Can the same period be called modern in Europe but medieval in India? Why does this happen? Important dates. Why do we choose a set of dates as important? The dates we select are not important on their own. They became important because we focus on a particular set of events. Example, your birthday. If our focus of study changes and we begin to look at new issues, then a new set of dates will appear significant. For example, in the history written by British historians in India, the role of each governor general was considered important. These stories began with the rule of the first Governor General, Warren Hastings, and ended with the last Viceroy, Lord Mountbatten. Every chapter was about the deeds of Governor Generals and Viceroys such as Hastings, Wellesley, Bentinck, Dalhousie, Canning, Lawrence, Lytton, Ripon, Curzon, Harding, and Irwin. All the dates in these books were linked to their lives, policies, and achievements. It seemed as if nothing outside their lives was important. Can we not write about the history of this period in a different way? How can we focus on the activities of different groups and classes in Indian society within the old format of Governor General's history? When we write history or tell a story, we divided it into chapters. We do this to give each chapter some coherence and to make the story easy to follow. In the process, we focus only on those events that help us shape the story we want to tell. In the histories that revolve around the lives of the British Governor Generals, the activities of ordinary Indians do not fit and have no space. Therefore, we need another format of our history. This would mean that the old dates will no longer have the same importance. A new set of dates will become more important for us to know. If we include the lives of farmers, traders, women, and common people in our history, how would the story change? If you were writing history, which dates would you choose as important? The dates of Governor Generals or the dates of important changes in Indian society? Next point, how do we periodize? In 1817, James Mill published a 3-volume work, History of British India. In this book, he divided Indian history into 3 periods: Hindu, Muslim, and British. This periodization became widely accepted. But can you think of any problem with this of looking at Indian history? Why do we divide history into different periods? We do so to capture the main characteristics of that time. The terms we use to divide periods show our own ideas about the past and the importance we give to changes. James Mill thought that all Asian societies were at a lower level of civilization than Europe. According to him, before the British came, Hindu and Muslim despots ruled the country. Religious intolerance, caste taboos, and superstitious practices dominated social life. He felt that British rule could civilize India by introducing European manners, arts, institutions, and laws. Mill even suggested that the British should conquer all territories in India to bring enlightenment and happiness to the Indian people. In this India of history, British rule represented all the forces of progress and civilization. The period before British rule was seen as a time of darkness. Can such a view be accepted today? Can we call any period of history simply Hindu or Muslim? In those times, many different faiths existed together in India. Why should we describe an entire age only by the religion of the rulers? This suggested that the lives and practices of other people do not matter. We should also remember that even ancient India, not all rulers ruled the same faith. Moving away from the British classification, historians have usually divided Indian history into ancient, medieval, and modern periods. This division also has some problems. It is a periodization borrowed from the West, where the modern period was linked to the growth of science, reason, democracy, liberty, and equality. The medieval period was used to describe a society where these modern features did not exist. Can we accept this same characterization for Indian history? As you will see in this book, under British rule, people did not enjoy real equality, freedom, or liberty. The period was also not one of strong economic growth and progress for common people. Therefore, many historians prefer to call this period the colonial period instead of simply the modern period. What do you think is a better name for the time of British rule in India, modern period or colonial period? Why? Comment below. Children, this was the first part of chapter where, when and how. We have understood how history is divided into periods and why we need to be careful while choosing dates and names for these periods. In the next part, we will learn more. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Santhish Study Circle. Tell me in the comments, how should we study history? By focusing on rulers or by focusing on changes in society. Thank you for watching video. See you in the next video.